Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a tour of the hardware of the HP ProBook 430G3. This is running on Windows 8 Pro, and it sells for about $700 through HP's website and also through online vendors. As far as specifications go, we're talking about an Intel Core i5 6200U, which is a 2.3 GHz processor, and it has an Intel HD Graphics 520. And in terms of memory, we have options of having 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM on board, or 5, depending on the version that you choose. And the display size here is a 13.3 inch 1366 by 768 pixel display, actually crafted by Samsung, and it's a matte screen as well. So as a 13-inch laptop, it's more of an ultra portable. It is fairly slim and lightweight, and despite the decent resolution on paper, it's not the most impressive thing in the world. Viewing angles and colors are still a little bit muted, which is a little disappointing. But otherwise, performance here is quite decent for, I would say, a mid-tier ultra portable and also laptop. So again, the main board is an Intel Skylake U Premium PCH, and the storage options, you have about 500 gigabytes on board as far as the hard drive goes, which is also decent. The weight is about 1.5 kilograms, also quite decent for a laptop of this size and caliber. Of course, you have access to all the standard connectivity options and wireless options, including Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on board. So taking a quick look at the hardware next, it is made out of this nice soft touch material on the front, which means that it resists fingerprints fairly well. You have access to a logo on the front, the HP logo. Otherwise, the hinge here comes across from 2 points, so it is a pretty sturdy hinge as far as using it from daily opening and closing. I didn't have any issues from that construction perspective. I think it's going to last for quite a while. You can see from a standpoint of the overall portfolio and the thinness, it does a decent job, I'd say. Not the thinnest laptop on the market, but decent nonetheless. It does have fans on board, which will kick in to prevent the unit from overheating, and you can hear a little bit of ambient sound when you're using it, but it remains decently cool. It gets a little bit warm during operation. There's access to an HP charging port on one side, as well as a USB port that can also be used for accessories. A 3.5mm headphone jack also dubs as a microphone jack, and a full-size SD card port, which is pretty useful for inserting additional media and accessing content from, let's say, a camera or additional phone that you might have. There's also 2 more USB 2.0 ports on the other side, as well as a full-size HDMI port and a VGA port for extending to a monitor, as well as connecting to the projector, and an Ethernet port for wired internet, as well as a lock. Otherwise, in the back, you can see it's a fairly clean laptop, not too much stuff going on. There aren't any additional peripherals as far as optional docks go for this specific model, but on the back there's also some basic info about the laptop, including the operating system running on the Pro version of full Windows, so it runs all the legacy apps just fine, as well as basic info about the capacity of the battery, as well as again the model number of the laptop. So opening up, you can definitely open up one-handed. It does a pretty good job as far as weight distribution goes, and we have access to a brushed aluminum shell on the inside, as well as an island-style chiclet layout keyboard, which is pretty typical from HP. So if we take a closer look first at the design here, we have a fairly generous trackpad as far as the size of the laptop is concerned. You'll have access to about a 3.5-inch trackpad on the front. It is pretty easy to use, fairly sensitive, and has multi-touch gestures supported, so you can pinch and zoom as well as slide up and down between web pages and applications which support this function. The left and right keys are fairly tactile and responsive, and there's also access to a fingerprint scanner for added security, so you can tap on this to log in. There's also a fairly decent soundbar on the very top. It's a stereo speaker set. It gets pretty loud, but it is slightly on the tinier side of the spectrum. This one isn't a partnership with, let's say, Beats Audio or anything like that, because this laptop is more geared for corporate usage as opposed to consumer usage, although at this price point, it still makes it a fairly decent buy if you're looking at for home use as well. There's access to dedicated controls for popping up the wireless manager, as well as muting the volume, a power button on the very top, which is pretty tactile and responsive, as well as the keyboard, which is full-size. And the keys themselves have a pretty decent travel. I think that some of the keys are a little bit cramped as far as the spacing, but overall not too bad. Using this for about 10 to 15 minutes, I got used to the layout and was able to type out words as well as documents at a fairly decent speed. You can access a fairly typical layout from, you can see this is a fairly typical layout from HP, and there's a dedicated row on the side for things like page up, page down for going home. On the very top, there's dedicated media controls for things like widescreen mode, the brightness controls for the screen. There isn't an ambient light sensor are in this one. There is volume controls on the top as well, so fairly standard stuff and definitely usable. There's also access on the top here to the screen, which is a matte screen. I like that because it means it doesn't glare as easily even if you're using it on brighter environments. Still, this isn't a Pixel QI enabled netbook or laptop by any means, so outdoors it still does wash out, and again, viewing angles is one of the more concerning factors on this specific model, but certainly not bad. There's access on the top here to an HD webcam, basically just 2 megapixels, allows you to do allows you to do video conferencing calls with Skype, and there's also a noise canceling microphone set on the very top as well, so pretty standard. Otherwise, the styling here is, I would say, quietly attractive. It does a decent job in terms of the overall appearance, but fairly standard again. I like that it has fairly angular corners on the very top here, so it does look fairly machined and modern. So performance here, I would say about average, what you would expect from that Core i5 chip on board, which is to say that it's going to handle multitasking quite well. If you're doing video streaming, a bit of video editing, it's going to handle that as well. Not the fastest machine in the world, but at this really thin form factor, which is easy to carry and tote around, combined with a great construction quality, it should really please those corporate users as well as people looking for a bit more of a premium ultra portable. It does emit a full-size optical drive or DVD drive, so if you're looking for that, it's not going to be found here, although Windows 10 in general does lack native software to support DVD playback. So thanks for watching this video first look and hardware tour of this HP ProBook, and hopefully you guys found this video informative. Thanks again, you're at OS.